Welcome back. Welcome into my little darkroom. I have a pretty small space here, but I'm going to show you, if you're looking at building your own type of darkroom, how you can utilize a small space to make a space work for you in the prints that you want to make. Now, even though this space is tiny, I've kind of utilized every single little nook and cranny to make this space work for me. So I'm going to give you a little tour of what I have in here and how it works. And if you are looking at making your own darkroom, you can take away a few little tips. And this is one of the most requested things that I've gotten since I started my YouTube channel, is people wanted to see a tour of my darkroom. So I'm going to give you a little tour. So let's just go clockwise in my darkroom. First and foremost, like every darkroom, I have the standard Gray Lab timer that I use to time all my development times, and I use it when I am making prints as well. This whole darkroom was built from scratch. This was just a blank room. And in total, this darkroom cost me about $500 to build, which is the shelving. And one of the biggest costs was the stainless steel sink, which is a nice deep sink that I use all the time. But the great thing about it is I got it on sale, I think, for $189. And it's a wonderful sink for, you're putting your chemistry in so that if it splashes around, it's not going to splash out. So a nice deep sink is something that you should look for if you are going to build one of these darkrooms. I would love to have a long sink where I could develop prints in, but with limited space, I use a counter. So I put my trays on top of the counter, but it can also double for loading film holders and doing some work on. So I live with the small sink. My chemistry never changes. I mix it up in this big tank. It's Kodak D76. I use everything at 1:1. The odd time I'll also use Blazonol, which is also Rodinol, but I like to keep my chemistry the same. I don't like to change things up a lot. I was listening to a podcast, and there was a photographer on there, and he was using 6 or 7 different types of chemistry to develop film. And I just think for myself, and I think it's a good idea, especially if you're just starting out, learn a chemistry, learn how it works to the film that you're using, and learn how to best use it. So I just use one chemistry. And for those looking to build a little darkroom, building yourself a few little shelves is really critical to store your reels, store some of your chemistry. It'll really help organize your space. I love using this Jobo CPE2 processor. Very consistent results all the time. I actually don't use the water bath and keep my chemistry at a constant temperature, because I mix it at a constant temperature and then I use it immediately. So I don't use the water bath, but I do use the motor and pouring it in, and it gives me very consistent results all the time. My tanks for developing film are the Jobo 1530 for my 120 film and my 35mm film. And then I use expert tanks, the 3010 for my 4x5. I can do 10 sheets of 4x5 at one time. And my expert drum 3005, where I can do 5 sheets of 8x10 or 5 sheets of 5x7. Because my Jobo expert tanks are too big for my small Jobo processor, for developing film in my Jobo expert tanks, I use a Unicolor Uniroller model 352. I have 3 different film washers. The one in the middle does my 35mm and 120mm film. The one on the left is an Alistair cross-jet system. It does my 8x10 sheet film. And the one on the right is the film washer by Gravity Works. It does my 4x5 sheet film. One of the things that I always like to do in the darkroom is label everything. From the developer, the stop to fix, even my tongs and trays all get labeled developer, stop, fix. I don't like to cross-contaminate anything. So with small darkrooms, you really got to utilize all of your space. Underneath my shelving, I have my trays for developing prints. I have a little tray where my reels can dry, my beakers can dry, my tongs can dry. 8x10 sheet film holders so they don't get wet. Tanks for developing film, some larger trays, my rollers, and electricity for my De Beer enlarger. Over here I have some chemistry that hasn't been used yet, and my washers for my film. As you can see here, I have 2 enlargers. This is my Lights Focomat V35 color enlarger. This thing is an amazing enlarger with a Lights Focomat lens, and I got this for a couple $100 when everybody was getting rid of their stuff and rid of their enlargers. I do mostly contact sheets with this enlarger. And then when I'm going to do some printing, I actually move this out. It's quite easy to move out. And then I use my big enlarger back here. And at the heart of the darkroom, this is my big boy enlarger. This is a DeVere 5108. I can print photographs up to 8x10 on this. So I do all my 2 1/4, my 4x5, 5x7. The great thing about this enlarger too is when you're doing 4x5 or 5x7 or even 8x10, I can print with the rebate with the black border around the photographs, which I really like. This is a color head. This is mounted to the wall because this thing weighs a ton. And this is in here for life. I mean, you'd have to have an earthquake to get rid of this thing. And around here you can see this is gray. This is actually 18% gray that I had left over from another project that I did. So I printed this so that the light doesn't bounce around and reflect off too much. But I can make really nice up to 11x14 prints. Like I said, my darkroom is small, and shooting 8x10 and having the 8x10 enlarger, it's not for creating big prints. That's not my style, not what I do. I love 11x14 prints where you can see ultimate detail, where the tonal range is incredible, and people see these prints and they just kind of lose their mind because how much detail is in them. And then we have the platform, the table that the easel goes on. I can actually lift this up and pull this out, and there is another platform underneath where I can put it down lower, and I can make bigger enlargements, or I could actually make up to 16x20 prints if I really pushed it in here. But that's a nice little feature to have as well. One of the other things that I have on this DeVere enlarger is I have an old Kodak Ectanon 10-inch enlarging lens. And it's a great complement to some of the old lenses that I use, like my Gortz de Gore lens. And I am not interested in that razor sharp, like that perfect quality that you get out of the latest lenses. I like things with character, and this enlarging lens actually even adds a little bit of character to those photographs as well, especially when I shoot with my old lenses. And on my floor, I use a cheap rubber mat system to take the fatigue away for those long hours in the darkroom. And I keep a little analog book diary of prints that I made and the exposures that I made the prints at, and any dodging and burning as well. And a good critical focusing loop is a must to achieve sharp prints. I use a standard Saunders 4-blade easel. This you can see in almost any darkroom, and I would really encourage people, if they want to do some printing, to get one of these easels. It will last a lifetime, and they're really good. I use just a single bulb little safe light. I keep it fairly dark in here, but it gives me enough light when I'm making prints to see what I'm doing. Oh, and I should mention one of the most important pieces of kit here in my darkroom is my Bose speaker system that I hook up to my phone, listen to all kinds of music, podcasts. That's a must when you have your late night printing sessions. Having a paper safe is a great idea. Then you don't have to work out of a box and go through opening the box and opening the bag all the time. This way you just lift the lid and then you have access to your paper. As you can see, you don't need a lot of space to make a good, efficient working darkroom. I can make contact prints, I can make prints up to 11x14 here really easy, all the way up to using 8x10 negatives. So I hope this little tour helped you out. If you're thinking about building a darkroom, these are some little tips that you can look, and what you can do. Just keep it efficient and keep it organized, keep it clean. This place is a nice, great little haven. Put on some tunes, make some prints. I hope you've enjoyed this. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Cheers.